Before we get started, let me read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you have reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles.
We're going to start off with the roll call.
Chesney?
Here.
Damrow? Everett?
Here.
Edrick?
Here.
King?
Here.
The first item on the agenda tonight is the approval of last month's meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to accept or corrections?
Make a motion. Accept.
Brian makes a motion to accept. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye. Aye. Those are approved as written. Let me explain the process for those of you that haven't been here before. As we go through each agenda item, we'll ask, John will give a brief, very brief summary of that issue or request. Then we will ask anyone that's in favor of that request to come to the podium and the microphone and explain to us or answer any questions. After that, we'll also give anyone that's opposed to that request an opportunity. After that is complete, then the members of the board will discuss and then maybe go back and ask questions back and forth. So it's an open dialogue between us and you. And then after that, we'll have a motion to either accept or reject. So the first item on the agenda tonight is a withdrawal of variance request to lot size 1344 Maple Lane by Lewis Haggard.
Yes, I passed out to you a letter that I failed to put into the packet, but I did have the body of the sentiment in the memo. This came before you at the last meeting. Mr. Haggard had indicated that he was wanting to withdraw but accepted a deferral from the last meeting. That's why it's on the agenda tonight. So if you could, just to respect Mr. Haggard's wishes, accept the withdrawal letter and strike the item from the agenda. A motion to that effect would be appropriate.
Move to accept and strike from the agenda.
Joe. Second?
Second.
Brian, second. Roll call.
Chesney?
Yes.
Damrow? I'm sorry. Everett?
Yes.
Edrick?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Motion is passed. The next item on the agenda was the 3123 Highway 411. But there's two items on the agenda related to that same location. So we're going to defer that, and the next item on the agenda we're going to take up is the special exceptions for storage units on 209 William Blount Drive by Timothy McConnell.
I also have a supplementary handout on that, and that shows the front elevation. That came in a little late because there was a revision on that, and also a map showing the zoning. The only two things that I have that are related to the memo, this is actually a good site plan as shown. It meets all the regulations except for a few things. First off, the front-facing facade of the building has to have 5% glass, and in other instances where it's a kind of a dead end of a unit, and it's not actually going to be opening up to a window, fake windows have been put in. So fake windows can be put in to 5% of the facade of the left storage elevation. The office already has that. Included in that, I think, just for continuity of design, and this is up to y'all's discretion on this, the office has a fake stone design at the trim at the bottom. That would be appropriate to continue across the left storage elevation just to give a continuity of design. We do have these regulations for the matter of appearance, so I'm approaching it from that standpoint. All the rest of the building is cut up and chopped up by the overhead doors, and there's really no way to get any other architectural treatment on that. Beyond that, has you combined those two lots into one? Did that go through a plat in Maryville? Okay, I wasn't able to confirm that. That was one item that I'd mentioned in the zoning map that you have as a part of the handout shows two lots. They've been combined. Any exposed portion of a commercial development that's next to a residential use or residentially zoned land needs to be buffered. And so I'm suggesting and recommending that the buffering be placed at the rear of the property and at the south portion of the property up to where it meets the existing commercial use. And I've discussed that with the proponent. He seems to be okay with that. So that would be a condition. And with those two, I think that is the totality of the conditions that I had on that.
Anyone here in favor of this request? Would you step forward, please? Do you have anything to add to what John?
No, we use Sterling Engineering, Derek, and Derek Jones kind of helped steward us through this process. But I want you to know our intent is to build a real quality-looking building. It looks good from the road, has a good aesthetic appeal. And with talking to John, we're going to make this thing look good. We'll probably put some fake windows up or maybe some solar panels up along the side, and probably plan on making this, hopefully do it in phases. The first two buildings at the front, and probably hopefully a year later do that back building that's on there.
And I wanted to add that this did come through at a previous meeting, and the special exception use was actually approved subject to submission of a complete site plan, so that's meeting that condition.
The last time you were here, wasn't there an issue about the driveway on somebody's property that had access? Would you refresh us on that?
Yes, sir. Last time we presented, and I didn't actually realize this, that the engineer proposed there's an existing driveway that's on there right now, that's on an easement that goes to the property behind us, Mr. Dameron's property. That driveway is actually on Mr. Dunlap's property. And at the time, the engineer had drawn that easement, or drawn the driveway just to kind of use that existing driveway to come into the property. After we looked at it, we talked to Mr. Dunlap. We felt like the best thing to do is let them just keep their driveway on their own. So we had to go to TDOT. They asked us to move the driveway down 40 feet, and that way we have a whole separate driveway. It does not encroach at all on his property at all.
So that is no longer an issue?
No, sir. Not that I'm aware of.
No, I talked to the neighbor, and they said they're fine with it.
Okay.
So, John, if he resolved that issue, then refresh us on what is the variance he's needing now.
Okay, there needs to be an approval of the site plan itself, and there will be a few subjects too. One is the facade, if you wish to go that route. The other is the buffering along the exposed property lines to residential zones land. And also, Justin Teague has some notes about the drainage plan and SWIP. They're pretty straightforward, just a matter of meeting form on that. So if you make it subject to those items, I think it would be appropriate. It's ready to roll.
So you're saying you're buffering back here?
Right along that line. Because we don't have to buffer with a commercial zone.
Okay. He's buffering here and there, the back and the left side that faces the residential. Any other questions from members of the board? Anyone here opposed to this request? Okay. Discussion?
How many units are in this, Tim?
Well, we don't have exactly planned out. Probably it's going to be 26,000 square feet. So we'll probably divide up 10 by 10s, 10 by 15s, some 10 by 20s. We're not sure exactly the exact mix that we'll have.
Ballpark, what do you think?
Ballpark, 220.
John, does this require any kind of retention pond?
It does have detention designed in the rear.
So it's
If you look at the,
it's a part of his design?
yeah, if you look at the design, it's real small. I realize that, but where they've got it graded at the very back and goes up to a natural slope, that's a detention area. And the septic will be in the back also. And have you worked that out with Gary Ferguson yet?
No, sir.
Okay, because there will be a bathroom in the office, and it probably will have to be pumped to the back.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but that's feasible. It just needs to be worked out with Mr. Ferguson on that.
Do I hear a motion one way or the other based on the comments that John has laid out?
Make a motion to accept.
Brian, motion to accept based on the comments and restrictions and changes that you've alluded to.
Okay.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Stanley seconds it. A yes vote means we approve it.
Chesney?
Yes.
Everett?
Yes.
Hedrick?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you for coming in. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the variance request for the driveway entrance for 3123 Highway 411. Okay, John?
Okay, this is a variance request because the design of the site with the number of units on it being greater than 40 requires an alternate entrance and exit. The topography of the site really works against that. It goes up steeply from 411, and you have to cut across slope to get up to the top of the building area, or the design area, and there's really no feasible way of putting another entrance into that site. So they're coming in seeking a variance based on topography of the site, from two entrances to one.
Anyone here in favor of this request? No one in favor? Well, it looks like you got selected.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to what John has described?
No, just here to answer any questions.
Could you state your name for the record?
I'm Robbie Roberts, Sterling Engineering.
Bobby Roberts?
Robbie.
Robbie Roberts? So this request then is to allow them to have only one entrance and exit, where our requirements are that they should have two, based on this size of operation. Questions for Robbie? I have some. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask, is that the total build out 120?
Yes, sir.
Robbie, as you turn into that location, the road sharply turns 90 degrees and heads up. How wide is that road, and how wide is the entrance?
Right now we're showing it 30 feet, and then it tapers to 24 once you get around the sharp bend. TDOT will probably limit our width to 40 feet total, so we'll have some radiuses there, but the total curb cut width will be limited to 40 feet, I'm pretty sure.
How does that compare to Out of Eden and the auto repair shop just down the street? What are their widths?
I'm not really sure about either of those, but if you there's a new site on 411 across the road from where Walmart is. I think it's some sort of retirement development that was done for the city of Maryville. Our entrance, it looks almost identical to that one.
Okay.
Does that have a left turn lane?
It does not have a turn lane, but the width and the curvature of the driveway is almost identical. And of course, we're getting a traffic study done by Cannon and Cannon to see You know, if we need any turn lanes, decel lanes leading into the site.
Well, let's talk about that. But right now, you're going to have 120 units, and as you go in or out, when you exit, you're in 55-mile-an-hour traffic. I mean, so are you considering an acceleration lane or deceleration lane?
That's what we're depending on Cannon and Cannon to determine what exactly needs to be done there. They'll do traffic analysis and determine how many people are going to be going toward Maryville, how many people will be going south, and they'll give a recommendation on whether or not an acceleration lane is needed.
The reason I'm asking is when I pulled out of there, you're looking down, of course, there was some scrub brush on the left going out of town, and the traffic is not traveling slow like they do in front of Walmart.
Right.
I mean, they're moving. So when you pull out of your location, you're pulling out into people going 50 to 60 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not a traffic expert, but you know that's what Cannon and Cannon does, and we'll take their recommendation and have to modify the entrance to meet that requirement. If they require an acceleration lane, we'll probably have to move the entrance south a little bit to keep that acceleration lane in front of our property.
Does that greatly affect your grade?
No, the grade going up the hill is
The steepness of that entrance, if you have to move it south so you don't have that complaint?
it'll affect it a little bit, but as you turn the curve and go up the hill, the grade of that driveway varies from 6 to 8%, so it's not all that steep.
John, is there been any discussion or analysis of, you've got 120 people live places. The target customers, do they all get up at 7 o'clock and leave, or do they scatter out throughout the morning? I mean, is there any kind of data that said they're going to mingle out over a 2 or 3 hour period? Is everybody going to be going out at 7:30?
The engineers can make those assumptions based on the probable occupancy. I understand this. Can anybody speak to the probable occupancy of this? I mean, who's going to be there, who it's going to be marketed to?
And your name, please?
Jesse Bowman.
Jesse Bowman.
Yes, sir. I guess to answer your question, we're going to be marketing to, we'll have a mixture of 1s, 2s, and 3s, so that's going to be a range from single family, like senior types, and then up to families, middle aged people, you know, kids and stuff like that. So just your normal type apartment community.
Will there be school buses that go up there?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if
Can
the
a school
buses
bus make
wanna
this turn?
drive up in there to pick up the kids, I guess they potentially could. They do at, we built Foothills Village on Morganton Road as well, and I believe the school bus pulls in to that community and gets the kids and then turns back around and comes back out.
Rather than park on 411?
Yes.
No. There is.
Well, I assume that's what they would do.
There is one document. I put some emails in front of you, and one of them had some items about TDOT. I think it's the one that's dated December 1st, and they said that what they needed is they recommended the following: radius must be a minimum of 20 feet. In fact, I think it might be a little bit bigger on turning out just to make it where you won't be bumping up anymore. Show distance from the property line to edge of the driveway, 20-foot minimum. Show driveway profile on the site plan. Based on the size of the project, please provide a traffic impact study for this development. The impact study will be used to determine if additional work would be required, such as installation of a right turn deceleration lane. Please also include the turning template for the largest expected vehicle and verify that sight distance is met. So I think the turning template would at least address a school bus, because I presume that moving vans will also be using that given this apartment complex.
Right. Yeah, I mean, any recommendations that come back from that test and study, of course, you know, like Rob said, we do.
So that begs the question, should we defer this until we have all that information, or are we asking to go ahead and whatever comes out, comes out? That's a question, not a statement.
Not questions for him, but just questions between us. Are we to that point yet? Do I need to ask him a question, or can we just have discussion?
Sure.
Well,
What is your pleasure, Steve?
on the 120 units, how are we going to justify we give them 120 apartments on a place when we can't give over 40 houses in a subdivision on one entrance?
Let me address that, because I think that 40 units on one entrance was based on our old subdivision regulations. The old subdivision regulations limited one entrance to 40 lots. If you had more than 40 lots, you had to have another entrance. We have changed that and now require that one entrance can accommodate 120 lots, just so long as there's internal looping. So the design of the development as it is shows one entrance, internal looping, and would meet the new criteria for subdivision regulations.
I'd like to follow up on Stanley's question. If you look at having a large room and you have 120 people in it, and this is going to have 240 people in it, would you allow an operation where you have that many people in a big room and one way to get out in case there's an emergency? You know, if something happens up there and all these folks need to get out, are they going to be able to get out down this? I don't know how steep the road to me is fairly steep, but if everybody needs to get out there quickly, it's going to be a mess.
Is that a question to me?
Just a comment. I mean, in my own mind, I'm trying to compare that many cars coming out to somebody having a large event center and there only being one exit for everybody to get out. That's what I'm trying to mesh in my own mind. But you're saying that you can have a subdivision today with 120 houses in it and there'll only be one exit.
That's correct.
What about the Commons recreational area?
If I could, we were talking about the variance of road entrances first, if you could. I know that it seems to be related, but I think we need to focus on that one issue.
I don't think we could make a decision on this tonight until you get your road study done. And is there no other possible entranceway into there? Hadn't this been a problem with that piece of property all along?
Yeah, you can see that the driveway that we've got going up into the property kind of follows well, there was an old driveway to a house there, and I think they've continued to use that as they've borrowed dirt from the site. So the way it's configured is about the best way you can do it. If you try to go straight up the hill, that 6-8% grade driveway will turn into probably a 15% grade. It would be a whole lot steeper. So it's simply the topography is the issue.
Yeah, and right now, going back to our Foothills Village that's on Morganton Road, we just have one entrance there. And I mean, we've never had an issue that I'm aware of with, I mean, you can always say there's potential for anything that happens, but, you know, realistically at Foothills, just looking back and thinking, we've never had the issue with, there's 90 units there, you know, of everybody coming out at one time on Morganton Road and, you know, not being able to. So I don't know if that would be an issue or not. But that one just has one entryway as well.
Is it level?
Yes, sir. On Morganton Road, yes, sir.
What is the width of the roads in Royal Oaks?
Oh, they're very narrow.
Well, is it 20?
They were designed like at 16 feet, I think, weren't they? Does anybody remember that? 16 feet.
That's what I'm trying to weigh in my mind, because they are narrow. I'm trying to relate that to this 24.
Oh, this is a standard access road. Actually, it would meet the requirements of a standard subdivision road for that matter.
Okay, all right.
Be no comparison to what
No.
I think kind of like Stan was saying a little earlier, if we had a little bit more information, like from a road study that says that this is what we can expect, and maybe if they say from your road study it says yes we do or no we don't need an acceleration lane, or something that, some more information just to, so we can feel a little bit more comfortable moving forward with it versus having all these questions and making a decision tonight. In that entrance, I would hate to be pulling in and out with one car, let alone having 5 or 6 backed up behind me. Everything else, but that road entrance is a bugaboo. I know Morganton Road. I know people do travel faster than the posted speed limit on Morganton Road, but 411, I think, probably handles quite a bit more traffic, and it's a 4-lane highway.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, on Foothills, we, based on recommendations by either you guys or TDEC, you know, we added, you know, we did what you guys wanted us to do and added that lane in the middle of the turn lane, I guess, and all that type of stuff. So, like I said, based on their recommendations, we're gonna, you know, if they recommend a decel lane or an XL, we're gonna do it. You know, just, that's just how we do business. You know, they say we're gonna need something, we're gonna do it.
When will you have that information?
I'm not real sure of their schedule, but I would imagine a couple weeks. I haven't talked with them. Derek Jones is the one that's been dealing with them. He couldn't be here tonight, but I do know that they've already been hired to do the work.
But before we go on, is there anyone here opposed to this request? Okay. I just want to make sure someone was here that had the opportunity to speak. So the item on the open for discussion right now is the driveway entrance requirements. And they will have more information in 2 weeks about the traffic study.
Well, there's one more point about the recreational area.
That's for the site plan once you get to the special exception part of it.
So there'll be a separate discussion about that after this issue.
Well, these are two different animals. One's a variance and one's a special exception. So you're considering the variance first.
Okay. But what Stanley asked about will be the next item on the agenda.
Next item would be the special exception for the apartments.
Okay.
I got a question between us.
Okay, sure.
Or maybe this includes this gentleman is, okay, they get their answer in a couple of weeks that they're looking for them from TDOT? So, or Cannon thing? Okay, is there a possibility that they make a recommendation that says, can't do this, guys, blows it out of the water? Worst case scenario is they're going to say, you got to have a acceleration lane, right or wrong? That's the whole reason for them to do their study, and that's what you want to know. That's what you're trying to find out. Do we need this, or do we not need this?
Yes, and that's also what TDOT is requiring.
I got you.
Well, let me follow up on that, Brian. Let's assume you get the study from the engineering company. Then do you have to go talk to TDOT?
They'll go with whatever Cannon recommends.
TDOT will normally accept their recommendation.
Yes.
So if that's whatever TDOT is asking you to do, that's going to be required of you regardless of.
Yeah, we will have to do what Cannon says in order to get the TDOT entrance permit. Yes, sir.
And I guess because of that, that's why, you know, with the financing and all that's kind of getting pushed up, that's what we'd like to get it approved. And, you know, we'd make the adjustments based on what they recommend.
You want a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion we defer it until we have all the studies and everything before us to make that decision.
Okay, we have a motion to defer until we have the information from the engineering company and TDOT. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Joe seconded.
And if they come back with that, does that automatically mean we'll approve it?
No,
Okay.
not necessarily. Helps their case, but it doesn't mean we're not. This motion didn't say we're going to approve it. But,
Right.
So-
I have a problem. That's a lot of traffic on there. Like I say, that road, you go down there 70 mile an hour and bang, 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 and they're not going to slow down and be gratuitous to let somebody get in. So that's going to make people.
So we have a motion and a second, and a yes vote means that this would be deferred until we have the information back from the engineering company and TDOT.
Chesney,
Yes.
Everett,
Yes.
Hedrick,
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Okay, it's deferred until we have the information back from your, is it Cooper?
Cannon.
Cannon.
Yes, sir.
Just to give you a heads up on the next will be the 5th of January. So it'll be the first week of January, 5th of January.
The next item on the agenda is the special exception on the Overlook Apartments. John?
Okay, I've given you a fairly extensive write-up on that. There are some deficiencies that I've noted and some concerns and issues. One of those was the entrance and the entrance design. Justin Teague had some separate concerns for the SWIP, but those kind of things, the SWIP can be overcome with the design. Some of the major issues, there are sinkholes, and I want to pass out some, I think everybody that's a proponent of this has seen the sinkhole pictures. These are pictures of sinkholes that Justin Teague had noted in back in 2011 when that site was being used as a borrow pit. And those opened up, and they were pretty major. I think there's no evidence of them on site right now. According to the GEOS, which was the geological operation that did a study on that. However, those are going to be part of the site plan design. The top of the berm or the top of the detention area right now, the sedimentation area, is actually going to be reconfigured and moved over to approximately where those sinkholes are. The geological study of the site did borings mainly for the structures, but did not do borings for the detention area. Did not do but one boring for the road itself. The concern is on those is first that the design is going over onto them and it's going to be covering them up, which might be a good thing, by the way. The reason being they might can be covered up and sealed. If that's the case, then I think we need to have some indication that would work out from an engineering standpoint. The other is the road itself is going to be coming in and extended up into that slope. That's why the whole site is going to be moved over. The whole top of the berm is going to be moved over because the road's going to be extended up and cut into the existing slope. And given the proximity of the observed sinkholes in relationship to the design of the road, I have a concern that that needs to be addressed also in the design, at least from a standpoint of having possibly some more borings and finding out what's underneath the road that's going to be redesigned over that area or in proximity to the area. As Stanley has noted, there is an issue of design of open space. There's also a minor issue of buffering. I think the way the property has been cut already, the slope is going to buffer most, and the site plan has shown a buffering all around the perimeter of the property except for down on 411. And I think the spacing of the trees, at least initially, is not going to provide much of a buffer to the south of the property on the Huffstetler property. I think that needs to be looked at a little bit closer and possibly having a little bit more thickness there or a opaque fence. Those are the kind of things that can be resolved as far as buffering goes. The issue of active area, it'll take about one, what did I say in my memo? Well, it's more than an acre of open space and active open space area, and there's only a playground that's shown, which is very deficient in that. Beyond that, I think we've kind of confirmed. I've called Maryville and there's discussions. I don't know that it's gotten down to contract stage yet. Somebody might want to address that for the sewer. I understand that there has been an agreement on that and that this property is willing to pay and participate in extending sewer down. This will be a pump situation. The sewer will be extended down to Calderwood Highway, which is the lowest point, and then be pumped back up towards the city. So this property will have to bore under 411 and hook up to the gravity down to the pump, and then it'll be pumped back up to the city. And the city is under negotiation with the proponent on that. The other issue is parking, and I noticed that the boring location plan actually has a different parking design that might actually meet all the requirements. So there's a deficiency of 33 parking spaces, which can be easily, I think, designed into the plan. Just need to be designed into it. That's basically it.
Anyone here in favor of this request?
John, to start off with on the issue with the sinkholes, did you get a letter from GS?
Yes, I passed that letter out. It's in your packet supplementing this. There is a, let me find that. I've got so many things up here, it's in this. There is a letter from GEOS that says subject detention pond A outlet pipe, the overlook apartments. They address the issue of possible seepage from the pipe that might undercut the geology and form sinkholes. But that is not the main issue here. The main issue is not the outlet pipe for the detention area. It's something that's a little further up that showed evidence of sinkholes. And there's a statement in there that says, although potential for sinkhole risk exists at any site underlain by carbonate rock, it is our opinion that the site has no greater risk than any other successfully developed site in the same geologic settings, provided considerations and measures are implemented during construction to reduce sinkhole potential. And you know, that can be engineered during construction, but it's a good idea. I mean, the reason they did the borings for the apartments was to find out if they had any problems. I think there needs to be some study of that area where you're cutting into that slope to find out if there are any potential problems.
Okay, Stanley, you want to go back to your question?
Well, is that a big deal that you don't have area for, if there's a bunch of children in there, is that a big deal that there's not ample room for them to play?
It's not a matter, this is for adults also. The way the regulations are written, this is active open space area. It can have tennis courts, it can have walking trails, it can have a lot of things, and it has to be a percentage of the site, and this just does not meet that.
Can driveway be considered, and parking spaces be considered walking trails?
The sidewalks might. That's up to how they're designated. The sidewalks are actually meant for access to the apartments and not open space active area.
Can a person have on all the slopes here build walkways
Yes.
in there? And that's right now what it's deficient for, right?
Well, we're looking for something on the design that says open area. All they had was a play area for the clubhouse. And the clubhouse can't be included in that. It's got to be open. There's potential there to identify it. It just needs to be identified on the site plan. Yes.
John, when you were giving your brief summary, did you talk about you're going to move this road coming up through here?
The road is actually, if you look at the even this boring location plan, you'll notice there's a dotted line, which is the existing trail of the road. It goes up and it actually gets crossed by the new trail of the road. The entrance is actually going to be pushed back. You're going to have a longer and I presume a flatter approach to 411 by pushing it back a little bit. And that will be going into what is now a very steep slope going up to the existing, I guess it's called sediment area. It's not really a detention pond. I think they just graded it out and it got to be informally a detention. I'm not really sure how that got formed. Because it was a borrow pit to begin with.
Yeah, but it's just a sediment holding area.
Yeah, and so they're reconfiguring the detention area, making it much more formed, and one of those redesigns is to push that slope towards the apartments, actually push it up slope and reform it so you can put the road in a little bit better.
So the dotted line there is the existing road.
The way it's configured, you'll notice it gets pushed up into the slope, so that's going to be a cut and a move over of the berm itself for the detention area.
Where does the water that comes out of the detention pond go?
It goes underneath the berm, goes underneath the road, and goes down to 411 to an existing catch basin, is my understanding.
Does it stay on that side of 411 or
Yeah.
it goes across the street?
No, it goes across. I think that.
So it goes under the road, into the property across the road?
Yes.
So it just comes out on their property?
Well, it's detention area, so it's going to be metered. I mean, this is an engineered detention area. So it's going to rain, it's going to rise up, and then it's going to meter out. So it's not going to be a flood on the other side. I think it's designed for a 25-year event.
Actually, 100.
100 year?
Yes.
Because, well, what I saw showed a 25-year elevation that came within 2 feet of the top of that berm. I'd hate to see what 100 would do.
Well, I think it's designed to handle a 100-year storm without overflowing.
when it goes across underneath 411, and the property's on the other side, is there a little creek over there?
I believe there is.
But
There's a creek in a kind of a swampy area.
Yeah.
So when it goes under 411, then where does it go?
I'm not really sure, but there's a catch basin just south of the entrance road that the water coming from the detention pond will be tying into.
That's that detention, that catch basin is there today?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So it goes someplace today?
Yes.
It goes across the road to the other
Yes.
side.
So all the water off of that whole place right now comes down to 411.
Yes. The majority of it. There's a little bit in the back that
And
maybe a half acre or so that drains away, but most of it drains toward 411, yes.
so the current detention pond handles all that, whereas used to, if I'm not mistaken, a number of years ago, that's a big problem. It's mud all over 411 whenever big rain. So it's handled that. So
Yeah.
it can be handled, I guess. So.
Well, keep in mind, before the borrow operation, this whole property went up rather steeply and then smoothed out. And so they've taken it down for the borrow operation and created 2 levels in the back. I think most of that actually drains into the sedimentation area. And obviously, it was draining out into some sinkholes too, which were not going to any catch basin at all. And that's an enclosed area with, I don't think there's any outlet for that right now, is there?
No.
So it might have just stood there and sunk into the ground.
What's a borrow operation? Hauling dirt off of it?
Yeah, hauling dirt up.
You borrow the dirt?
Borrow,
B-O-R-R-O-W?
yes.
When you look at the elevation, looks like there's 5 buildings. Well, 5 apartment buildings plus the office, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are they staggered up the hill, or?
The 2 closest to 411 are within a foot or so of being at the same elevation along with Clubhouse. The next 2 up the hill are approximately 14 or 15 feet higher than those 2.
Okay, so you're taking into account that.
Yeah, the 3 buildings in the rear set up higher than the 2 in the front.
Okay.
If you had the site, you got to be a good place for mini storage warehouses.
Okay, John, remind us now, the first issue was about the road entrance. What specifically does not meet, about this request, does not meet the current regulations?
The major portion of major issues, and I'm not going to do the minor issues, but they're easily taken care of. It doesn't show the open space needs to be shown on a site plan. I think that's easily designed into the site. Needs to have more parking. I think that's fairly easily designed into the site. The biggest issues, in my opinion, are the road entrance, which is part of the site plan itself, and the sinkholes. I think those are the 2, particularly because this is the way I look at it. If you grant a variance for number of entrances, you put all your eggs into that one basket of one entrance, and you need to make sure that that road is going to be stable into the future. And with the sinkholes, a possible issue with that, I think those need to be studied a little bit more. The borings on the site were mainly for the apartments themselves. There was 1 boring in the road, the existing configuration of the road, but there was really no borings down where the sinkholes are identified.
So you've identified 4 items: open spaces plus parking, sinkholes, and additional soil boring.
Well, sinkholes and additional soil boring are the same thing. The other issue is the design of the entrance,
Which is the other issue?
which is part of the issue that you had with the variance.
Yes. Let me make sure I understand. We have two issues on the table tonight. We could, options are approve both of them, reject both of them, or 1 and 1. But if either one of them is rejected, then the project doesn't go forward.
Well, I'm not sure it's at the point that you need to think about rejecting anything. I think the discussion on the variance, the idea there was that you wanted more information before you made a decision. I think that this is resolvable. It's just that I don't see the information, and to me that shows it is resolvable at this point. It just needs more information.
Okay.
Question, Mr. Roberts. I guess the whole group. In your mind, given that we're considering...
Could you turn your microphone on, sir?
In your mind, given that we're asking you to come back in January with the other, with the variance here, do you feel like you can present a complete plan at that time that overcomes these, what I think are probably more minor issues than that entrance at the same time?
Yes, certainly with the traffic study, we can get all those questions answered with the entrance. Like John said, I don't think there's any problem adding the additional parking spaces, and there's plenty of room for the open space on site. We just got to label it. As far as the sinkholes, I think I'm no geotechnical specialist, but generally when they're hired to do bores where the buildings are located, they're trying to study the design of the foundations for the buildings. For the sinkholes that are there now, I'm not sure they could do borings to determine any additional information about those. Typically, you just deal with them as you grade the site, and the geotechnical engineer will come out and take a look at what they're running into and give recommendations on how to fix them. You know, imagine it's just doing borings. You're boring a small hole, and you've got a very big area you're dealing with, and typically they deal with that as the grading operations are going on.
I would point out that in the handout I gave you for this, the second page was an excerpt from the report of geotechnical exploration, sinkhole risk reduction and corrective actions, basically state what you're stating, and there are ways of covering it up and compacting it to where you make a cap over what would be a sinkhole. So it can be designed.
Yes. Yes. Well, I guess what I was suggesting was, if assuming that you're coming back in January with the other issue, can we make this package more complete at that time? With these things that John has pointed out appear at this time to be deficient in the current plan.
Yes.
And let's see. And obviously, I know you can't bore every square foot of any of that property, and you can have a sinkhole 5 feet away from where you bored and not even know it's there until you start excavating the site. I understand that. So that was my comment. Just
Any other questions? Any other discussion from the board members?
We're trying to decide right now. Again, the questions, the four areas. What is it that we're trying to discuss right here, right now? I understand
Whether you're going to approve the special exception subject to some items, or whether you're going to take some other action. Now there was and I want to give due voice to the proponent. There was one mention of financing. How critical is the financing on this as far as timing goes? Does anybody have an idea on that?
How you doing, gentlemen?
Your name?
David Piesimer, P-S-I-M-E-R. Gentlemen, we knew that a lot of this was incomplete. What we were really looking for tonight was to get it approved and passed to the end of this month to save 2 months down the road for financing. We're beyond right now what the landowners have agreed us to, so it's going to be up to them to extend the contract and also our financing with our banks. They were looking at a closing date the first week in January, so that's the reason we come to you guys tonight, was really to just hopefully get this done with some restrictions, concessions into the next end of this month, saying that if we got these things done, if it looked good, then approve it. Like this gentleman said, even if you passed it and approved it tonight, don't mean that, next meeting could be turned down. This just saves us a month and a half of delays, and that's all we're really asking for. We're not, we understand there's a lot of things that weren't complete on the road, on the site, and I think our hope was that maybe we could convey this to you guys a way that you would understand and see that we're not looking for a approval of it all tonight, just to move it on to the end of the month, and maybe when we'd have all this information, they could look at it then and we could say that, yes, it does look good, or it don't, and then turn it down. But this just delays us tremendously in the financing. If we go into January with you guys, then it's going to put us into the end of January before we would have possible approval.
Well, no, they'll be meeting on the 5th of January. Mm-hmm. Can give you full approval then.
Are you buying the property or just doing the planning for the current landowner?
We are buying the property. And it's just, they've been gracious in extending the contracts, and we don't know.
So if they extend it, ain't no big deal?
If they extend it, we still have an obligation with our lenders. And our plan was to hopefully had all this done this month and close, right after first of the year. So that's kind of where it's at. It's timing for us. Just it's not the fact that we were looking to have everything done tonight and approve it. We understand it's not. We were just hoping for a little kindness, I guess, and understanding that it could still be turned down. It's not by no means. We understand that if the road study didn't look good, or if the site, we couldn't come back with those, the parking or some other issues, and we understand that, it wouldn't go forward. This just saves us a tremendous amount of time and possibility of other delays or losing the project altogether.
If I could pose something, you've already got a deferral on the variance, and that is a critical issue to the whole site plan anyway, and that'll come up on a regular basis on January 5th. We could call a special call meeting with 15 days notice, so I'm just going to throw that out as a possibility. That would basically put you into the last week of December.
It may be hard to get a call meeting with Christmas coming up.
Well, I'm going to be working. Of course, I'm going to be retired January 1st. I'm just saying that there's a possibility of moving it up a week, and that would get you the end of December, and at least give you an answer before the first of the first of the year, the next year.
But the next meeting's going to be 4 weeks from today.
That's true.
And the 5th is only 4 weeks away.
I think it would be best just leave it like it is.
That's where I am. Let's leave it on the 5th.
Well, I was trying to address.
No, appreciate that.
He said if we can at least get a complete answer by the end of the year, it would help them in financing. And, you know, a special call meeting is a possibility.
If on the meeting on the 5th, if you approve or deny, but if you approve, we still have to go that's it.
Well, there are two bodies that need to approve this.
Right.
One is the Board of Zoning Appeals, the other is the Planning Commission, because it's split by zoning.
Mm-hmm.
And I discussed that with Derek about, and I think he discussed it with the proponents about whether you wanted to get it rezoned, but that took about 3 months, and you said that's not going to work for you.
Right.
So we're going with the existing zoning. Since it's split, it's a site plan that has to be approved for special exception by the Board of Zoning Appeals, mainly because it's got the residential part in the back, and by the Planning Commission on the commercial part, zoning in the front. So it's going to be put on the agenda for this month's meeting, and they meet on the Planning Commission meets, get that right, on the 19th, which is a Monday. That'll be the 19th of December. To wrap it up, since we need 15 days notice, I've counted the days, and the 26th is the first time, well, that's a holiday anyway, that's not going to work. 27th would be the first date that we could even think about getting a special call meeting. I'm just throwing out some options on this.
This is one of those deals I don't think we need to, on our part, getting.
Can you turn your microphone on?
It's on. Yeah, I don't think we're getting a real big rush on this one. This is a pretty important deal, I think. There's a time frame it works in on a normal basis, and if we're looking at the first of the next meeting, if it works within that, it works. If it don't, it don't.
Just while we're discussing, I agree with Stanley. I think we'll leave this on the 5th and address this at our next regular meeting, rather than trying to hit between Christmas and New Year's and try to get a quorum then. So now we have, excuse me just a moment. Did I ask if anybody was opposed to this?
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Excuse me, I have Alzheimer's sometimes. So now I guess we're just open for a motion.
Well, since we made a motion to defer the other one, why don't we make a motion to defer this one, and we get both of them again the first of the month?
Okay, I have a motion to defer, just like the previous item. Do I hear a second? Without a second, I cannot proceed, correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll second Stan's motion.
Okay. We have a second. Yes vote means that we are going to defer.
Chesney?
Yes.
Everett?
Yes.
Hedrick?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
That motion passed.
Okay, both of these items we deferred to our January 5th meeting. Is there anything else we need to discuss tonight?
Well, that's a good segue in that I will not be here because I will be happily retired from employment in the county. And Thomas Lloyd will take over the position. He'll be confirmed on the 15th of December, I'm sure for sure. Thomas is out in the audience. Raise your hand again. He's going to be taking over the building commissioner position, and also I think basically director of planning. It's going to be a dual type of activity, as I've been doing it for the last 5 months. And I wish you the best because it's hard to do both of them. So he will be the one supporting you in the next meeting. And by the way, he was involved in the review of this site. I really respected his input into the review of the site.
I'd like to personally thank John for what he's done. We've worked with him a long time, and I've enjoyed it, so I think he's done a great job.
I worked with Stanley from the time I was here even till now. He used to be on the planning commission.
John put that in the minutes. We thank you.
Put that in the minutes.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Any other items for the board member, or do I hear a motion?
Just one item. If any of you want to meet your requirements for training, I'm open in my office. I think I'm taking care of Mr. Everett. Mr. King, if you want to give me a call, I can set you up for some training. I think, Stanley, we finally got you squared away too, and you got yours squared away.
Right.
So.
I thought I was under the impression that when we done the thing at the Hilton that covered.
Were you there?
I was there, bro.
I don't know that I got a certificate from you. I need to.
I didn't get no certificate. He was there. I was.
You need to. If you can come by my office and let you fill it out. I've got some old forms I can fill you out on that, and that'll take care of it.
Okay.
I think Stanley left at the halftime on that one. Well, didn't you leave at
I had
half?
to get him out of the swimming pool.
He had 4 hours, and it was about 6 hour training. Yeah, once you got your credit, you left. I'll check the record again and see if I can find that.
Any other items? Motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.